Aloha. I'm Dr. Sasha Lessin, and I'm here with my beautiful wife and co-partner, Janet Kira Lessin.
Hi, everybody.
And this is our third episode in a series called Amend the Malevolent Matrix, Our Anunnaki Makers Mentored. And today's program is called Slaves from Our Get-Go. That's who we were. So let's look at the first slide. The slavery that first came about on this planet, Nibiran men came to Earth as volunteers. They were came here to get gold, which would be shipped back to their planet, turned to powder, floated up into a hole in their ionosphere, and shield the planet. They were volunteering to save their planet and save their people. They did not know they would become slaves. Next slide. However, it was decades and decades and decades, and they never got to go home, and they didn't have any beer, and they didn't have any women, and they were starting to get really uptight. But their lords who mastered the mining scene kept them working, and they were grumbling, and the supposed head of all these gold miners, the chief scientist of the Anunnaki, these are the people from Nibiru who came to Earth for gold. His name was Enki. He's the head scientist. And he said, hey, listen, boys, I'm going to get you out of here. I got a scheme. Okay, let's see the next slide. And what his scheme was he said, don't send so much gold up. So do a slowdown. And you know what? We're going to get the bosses really uptight, and they're going to come down and they're going to see how awful your situation is going is. And don't worry, I'll have a solution by then. I know just what to do. Next slide. So Enki basically said, look, the boss came down. His name is Enlil or Yahweh. He said, hey, I'm going to kill you guys if you don't get back to work there, or whoever put you up to this, meaning his brother Enki. And Enki comes out and says, no, we don't have to do that. It's okay. All you got to do is, you know what? I found these intelligent human beings. They're very interesting, but I know just how to modify their genome. I'll have help with the geneticist, Nimma, my sister, and my son, Ningishita, and we will be able to make people that will obey us, and they won't be wanting to go back to some other planet because they're adapted to this planet. And don't worry, they won't be slaves. The boss said, you can't make slaves. That's against the rules of the Galactic Federation. And Enki says to Enlil, these people will not be slaves. They'll be helpers. Believe me, they'll be happy to help us. Next. So the king okayed that back in Nibiru, and Enki and his sister Nimma and his son Ningishita, they created, first of all, the atom, the first of our species. And they did this by combining the genes of themselves, their Anunnaki, their Homo sapiens, with that of Homo erectus, which is the ancestor of Bigfoot. And they got together and they did all kinds of things. They made fertilized zygotes and everything. And this was a major thing just to get a viable fetuses. They had lots of experiments before they finally got there. But when they did, they realized that the only way that they would get the mitochondrial DNA that they needed was to put it in the womb of an Anunnaki. And so Enki says, "Oh, sure. Well, let's use my wife, Damkina." And Nimma said, "No way. I'll do it. I'm the scientist that designed all this. I'll carry this child, and much more. I'll take care of it too, nurse it and take care of it." Next slide. So she got this fertilized zygote it was fertilized with Enki or Ningishita's sperm, and a egg from one of the Homo erectus women, and out comes this baby. He's got black hair. He's got dark red skin. This is our first boy in our species. His skin was the color reddish black, of the same color as the clay of Africa, they said. He was just like Anunnaki little boys, except for one thing. He had a foreskin purpose, and Anunnaki men did not. And this will later on become important, but that's other than that, he was just a little brown boy like the Anunnaki boys. Next. And the deal was Enki had intended from the get-go to make these children breedable, but Enlil, the commander, said, no, you make clones, but do not make breedables because it's illegal as far as the Galactic Council is concerned to create a species. You need their permission first, but you can go ahead and make clones. And so make sure that's all you do is clones. Next slide, please. And then they decided, well, let's let them have a little fun. Let's make a girl too. And so again, they're going to go through this procedure. And again, Enki's saying, hey, well, just use my wife, Damkina. She does whatever he says. And Nima said, nah, okay, this one she can do. And so the second they make a girl, and Damkina carries it for 9 months, and then it's delivered. And the girl is a little blonde, blue-eyed Tiamat. Go. And it's a very unusual child. She's got the DNA, first of all, from Damkina, the mitochondrial DNA, and also she has some, because it goes down through the women's line, from Nimma, who is before that. And so this is the first female of our species. Again, she's supposed to be a clone, is this little blonde, reddish blonde, a sandy-haired girl. Okay, next slide. But Ningishita figured out, he's a scientist, he figured out what the X and XY chromosomes in the germ cells of these humans were, and he made them secretly, made them fertile, made her fertile. Her name is Tiamat, and she was fertile, but they didn't tell anybody. Well, meanwhile, the boss hears about this, and he wants to know about it. So they have Enki and Nimma take their kids, and they come up to Enki's other house at Eridu near Basra in Iraq, and that's where she's makes love with Adam. But now can get pregnant. She's about 14 or 15. She takes a psychedelic that was growing on a tree that Nimma was growing in the garden there, and she has a satori. She has an enlightened experience, and so she's got the smartest people from her society training her. She's loved by them, and all their attention is on her, and now she's having this experience too.
You're going off screen. I'm just keeping you on screen.
Oh, she's keeping me on screen. Okay, next slide.
Okay.
So there's a representation of Nimma planted this tree. This tree is something she brought over from Agade, from the capital in Nibiru, and she planted there. And she's a neuroscientist.
She originally brought seeds from Nibiru to the earth, and then she started to plant things in her garden and experiment with them and see what was here naturally, and their uses, what were their purposes.
So this particular tree, though, was deliberately planted to transfer the energy, the mana, from Agade, from Anu's palace in Agade, to Earth. And it's a very special tree. We're not exactly sure it is, but it's pretty likely it has a dimethyltryptamine in it in some form. Next. Well, when the commander comes over and he sees this little girl, smart as a Nibiran child, and she comes right up to him and said, "Oh, hi, Uncle! Look what I'm doing. I'm figuring out how to make designs and on this table that I made. See, I made this apron." And the boss just sees, "Oh my gosh, she's pregnant," and he wants to throw Enki in jail. You're not supposed to have made breedables. They're only supposed to be clones. Bind him up, and he has his son come and tie Enki up in a restraint. Okay, next slide. And he says, "Now you two, Enki's going to take you back."
You're going off the screen. Here, look here. That's where you want to keep your face there. Go ahead. Go to Africa to breed.
Yeah, so he sends him to Africa to breed. Next. Well, the boss's enforcer, his name is Ninerta, his son. He says, "Hey, all those guys down there in Enki's place in Zimbabwe have slaves to do work for them, and I want some slaves to do work on my place, and so do my cousins and brothers here." And so Enlil says, the commander, Enlil, he's also known as Yahweh, says, "Okay, you can do it." So Ninerta gets an artillery piece. He goes down with his guys to Enki's place in Africa, and he blows a hole in the wall, and he steals a whole bunch of people to slave up in Iraq. Next. And there's a depiction of Ninerta with his weapon. That thing underneath him is the way they represent his airplane. And the weapon he's got is a multi-headed missile. He can wipe out anybody that defies him. So he is the enforcer. And so he steals a whole bunch of people, brings them up to Iraq. Next. He blows a hole in the wall. And here's a reconstruction of of Enki's home compound. Now, it's right at a place called Great Zimbabwe, and it's right in a line with what's known as the 30th parallel. It goes a line straight down, meridian, straight down from the 30th parallel where Cairo, where the mouth of the Nile is, through Zimbabwe, all the way on down to something in the south of Africa known as Enki's calendar. Okay, so he blows a hole in the wall. This is in the middle part of that line going up and down. Next. So it's going well for the Anunnaki. That's the name they give to the Nibirans, are called Anunnaki, those who came from the sky, or the sons of Anu. And these slaves, and they are slaves. They can't do anything else. They dig gold, and they're getting lots of it. And they boat this gold up to Iraq, where it's refined a bit, put into gold bars, and the gold bars are shipped to Mars. And from Mars, they're transshipped. It's easier to get off Mars because there isn't so thick an atmosphere, to Nibiru, and then it's transferred. It's processed into monoatomic gold, which they've been floating up to the ozone hole, and also found out that it prolonged life and made them healthier, so they're starting to eat it too. Okay, next. And so the hybrids are pretty happy. They don't know what the gold's for. It doesn't mean anything to them, but they just dig this stuff, and they get fed, and they get a nice place to live, and things seem to be going okay. They don't quite realize they're slaves yet. And they like the deal. They give you food and housing, you mine the gold, and when they retire, Enki lets them go off in the bush, in the African bush, and form their own communities. And so some of them are already starting, even after they've worked for a while, to adapt to the African bush and learn how to get along with the species and the ecology of Africa. Next. Well, we will go on next time with just what happens with this slavery. But I can tell you this, that we have been slaves from the get-go, and the slavery persists in various forms to this very day. And this will be continued. So this is our third episode, and we're talking about the junk stuff that we got from the Anunnaki, the program we had, which is to enslave other people and live off their labor from the get-go. Janet, what would you like to say?
Oh, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and if you like our information here, support us by buying one of our books. We have 6 books on the Anunnaki so far. I'm working on in Herzog. I released Genesis in 2022, Nema in 2023. Our first book was Gods No More, then Legacy, False Gods, Marduk, and Evolution of the Gods. And we're going to continue to bring you these episodes to help you learn more about our ancestors, the Anunnaki. We are all part Anunnaki. So that's what I'd like to leave with.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Do subscribe to our YouTube channel too.
Yes, please subscribe. Thank you very much. Aloha.